Good morning, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me correctly or hear me clearly. All right. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Dred. I am a Jamaican Bitcoiner originally, but became a Nostrage last year November when we had Nostr November, which was a pretty cool event that if you were there, you realized you were a part of something early and something special. I was invited here by my uncle. I'd like to shout out my uncle. He's a quiet but strong force in my life, and probably yours too, if you know what uncle I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the Caribbean. I know you see a website up here that's GitHub, and eventually you'll be going there to see what exactly I'm building, but I'm going to start off by talking about the Caribbean. And we are in a section of the world that has massive archipelagos, and the Caribbean is one way on the other side of the world that is also a pretty special archipelago, a special group of islands to me, because we are a special group of people. We were brought there from all over the world. We speak about 6, 7 different official languages, dozens, if not more, of unofficial creoles and patois and different dialects that kind of keeps us separated culturally, keeps us separated in terms of communication. But we're all pretty much still one people. We identify as Caribbeans. I like to say that Jamaica is one of the center pieces of the Caribbean. That's because I'm biased, I'm from Jamaica. But if you ask someone like Arvin, he'll tell you that the real Caribbean is represented in Trinidad and Tobago, where they have a Caribbean festival that represents much more than just the official 13 Caribbean islands. It represents 26, maybe 30 different nations and nation states that identify with the culture of the Caribbean, Belize along the coast, because we all celebrate the same type of culture, the same type of crop over, the same type of wins and losses of the region. The one thing missing there, in my opinion, is free and open connectivity. A lot of our connectivity, a lot of our communication, whether it's communication with value, communication, language, or even communication with just physically meeting and talking to people and learning about each other's culture is blocked. It's usually blocked by different borders, regulations, censorships. I mean, in the name of our safety sometimes, sometimes you can't really easily go from Jamaica to Cuba, even though they're literally 90 miles apart. If I had a fishing boat, I should be able to get there in a couple hours. But it is massively easier for me to get to Florida or even Europe than it is to Cuba sometimes. That's crazy, right? So, unfortunately, that's the reality. That's the reality in many places, not just the islands of the Caribbean that are separated by sea, but also islands out here in the Pacific, many places. I've been able to go across the U.S. and visit more states in the U.S. than I have islands in the Caribbean, and I'm from the Caribbean. So that should give you an idea of the connectivity gap that I see here. And bringing back home value. Oh. Yep, no worries. Bringing back home value is also a very important thing because in the Caribbean, third world nations, frontier nations, a lot of people leave to go and get many, well-paying jobs in first world countries and bring that money back home or send that money back home, whether it be via remittance, carrying it physically, Western Union, MoneyGram, those kind of things. And each one of those methods of transmission of value back home and communication comes with a cost, right? Whether it's a 7% via Western Union or it is a tax you have to pay at the customs duty officer if you're bringing back home stuff personally. A lot of different ways that these borders are causing friction for our people to communicate value and to communicate with each other, communicate love. If you know me from One Love Bitcoin podcast, I love to talk about everything in terms of love because love is the best way to communicate with each other. That's the one true way we all know how to universally communicate. You can see someone and know love without knowing anything about their language, just by body language. And I think that's a very important thing. I would love to see if something in Nostr actually was able to communicate that kind of language in some kind of app in the future. Just think about it, developers. So let's talk about Flash. I'm building an app. As you can tell, it's open source. And I'm building it specifically so that people who are abroad or people who know people across the world, but specifically in the islands of the Caribbean, can send value home, can send money home. The goal is to be able to send that money home over the Bitcoin rails using Lightning or Bitcoin. But then we'll have off-ramps in the Caribbean where people can actually go and cash that money out or use it if they want locally. And that's pretty important because as of right now, the financial systems that are set up in the Caribbean are such that unless you're doing a wire transfer that'll take you 3 to 5 days and $45 plus in fees, you're not going to get value home very easily. So this is hopefully going to connect those dots and allow people to be able to move value back and forth very easily. But the most important part about this app that I wanted to talk about is the fact that I've integrated Nostr into it. I don't know if you guys know about, well, you probably do, obviously. This is a Nostr crowd. But you know about Arcade? I love that app. I started using it in the beta, and I think it's a really cool concept because it allows you to be able to have different communities in the app via Nostr, and those communities can be targeted towards different things. One could be just simply buying and selling stuff. One could be talking about farming. One could be talking about video games. And these different communities are a really cool way to localize a community or localize a group of people that want to talk about something. And I'll bring that back to the Caribbean. You can now localize communities in the Caribbean that want to not only send value home, but they also want to talk about their culture and share it via hashtag. I loved what Vanessa said earlier because these marketing strategies work across cultures to all show us this big Venn diagram of where we are similar. So if you have somebody talking 6 different languages, we all know we love Carnival, hashtag Carnival now, you've united the entire Caribbean under one hashtag that we can all talk about, we can all share value around, and I'm building an app that can do that with Nostr sharing value, Nostr bringing money home to people, Bitcoin bringing money home to people, and then open source so people can use it in any way they wish. So that being said, we're hoping to launch hopefully later this year or early next year in beta testing. I am looking for Nostr developers, so if you're interested in learning about what I'm doing, please come and talk to me, come find me and tell me what you think about it, or, you know, I'd love to hear what you're working on too. And, you know, eventually I want to be able to use this app to connect. You know what, I think it's my power that keeps on going out, but it's okay. Yeah. So you can see the GitHub repo here if you want to go there and look at what we're doing. It's all open source. You can, you know, audit yourself, test it yourself, check it out, see what you think. And we have a website that should be opening up soon, so you can see exactly what it's all about. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Flash. My whole question's to the end, but I have one other thing I wanted to talk about too, which is OpenSats. Because of OpenSats, I'm honored to be a member of it, and I've been able to learn about so many of your projects here. People in the room right now, I've probably learned about a lot of your projects in the last few months, but I'm also interested in learning more, because the more ways we can use Nostr in these different ways, especially the one I talked about, if you find some way to communicate love, I really would be interested in hearing that. So if you're working on something, please come and find me as well. I'd love to learn about what you're working on. And I think that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions for me, I think we have some time for questions. Yeah.
Hello, Dred. You said that with Flash you have an off-ramp opportunities in the people in the Caribbean. So how do you facilitate that off-ramp? Do you use peer-to-peer or like, what is your strategy in that?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dea. There are 2 different ways we're hoping to facilitate off-ramps. For the MVP, it will be brick-and-mortar buildings. So they're private. We're working ground up. So we're going from store to store, from person to person in the communities. And people who are known in those communities that might have a store can also be a cash-out point. And we're specifically working with brick and mortar private company remittance services as well. So they already have money transfer licenses within their jurisdiction, but they can also now just accept Bitcoin. Because in many places in the Caribbean, Bitcoin is still, it is not regulated yet because they're still working on different things, whether it's a CBDC in Jamaica or a regional coin in the Bahamas. They're working on different things that have not made it so that you need a license to use Bitcoin yet. It is still like trading something. So that way, people who already have the license to give physical cash can now accept Bitcoin with just an extra point of sale machine. So that's the first way. And then the second way we're doing it is via peer-to-peer marketplaces. Like I said, Arcade is doing a really good job of proof of concepting this, and I would love to have public groups within the Flash app that you can also connect to outside the Flash app because it's Nostr. But those are the kind of groups you can have peer-to-peer trading with happening on the app as well.
Other questions?
I was talking to somebody else from the Caribbean this week, actually, who was telling me about all these mutual aid groups, that it's really common for people to pool money, groups of people, families, and then distribute it to who has a need that month or whatever. Is that something that is in your mind on your roadmap, or are you focused more on peer-to-peer?
No, I love this question because, yes, in Jamaica we call it partner draw. I think it's called susu in different parts of Africa and the Caribbean. And yes, this is something that is still very common. It is usually common in the older generation now, but they're still doing it very often. So if anybody wants to know what this is, it's basically a program, a community program, sometimes within a family, sometimes within a group of friends. I did it within a group of friends when I was younger. And it would be, I would go ahead and make a verbal agreement or contract with my friends. Let's say it's 6 of us. And then every month, each one of us would put in $100 in the pot. And we would have one banker that holds the pot, one of the 6 of us. So it's still within that group of trust. And then every month, when each one of us put in that $100, one person gets the pot. So it's like you're saving for 6 months, and when your time comes around, you have $600. This is a very, very common way to save in many cultures. And I see the combination of Nostr and Lightning being an amazing way to automate this and also make it so that it's fully transparent. I'm not sure how scalable it gets because there's still a level of trust there. But it's an amazing way to make it transparent, to make it easy and safe to keep the money in funds, whether it's multi-sig, et cetera. And I'm looking forward to someone making that work. I think Fedi's working on something similar. And on our roadmap, we're hoping to use the public group chats to make that a thing that could become something that people are talking about. But I also want to make sure that people are safe in doing it, right? So NIP04 is still kind of shaky, if you guys know about that. I know that NIP44 is in security audit right now, so I'd love to see like encrypted direct messaging where people can actually talk to each other on Nostr safely to be able to communicate things like this. Otherwise, you know, they can always do it face-to-face, but I do see Nostr being a really cool way to do this across borders.
Question or comments?
Yeah, this is a comment, actually. I just want to say I think this is really cool because it's taking Nostr outside of being like a Twitter clone. It's like taking it outside of social media. It's actually, I just think it's a great example of like a service that's kind of using Nostr as part of its mission to do something else entirely, which is just really cool.
Thank you, sir. I'm honored.
Give it up for Dread, guys. Thank you very much.